with a substitute teacher. So I'd like to start today with thanking the students one more time for their involvement in our game and our fans. I thought they were tremendous. In the latter part of the game, there were times when we needed that support, and I could hear it as a coach, so I know our players could. I've heard them mention it, and they've been tremendous, but to be there in the end means a lot for our team, and the students were awesome. So it gave me an opportunity to thank them after the game, but I know our players really appreciated their support, and we felt like we had a big-time home field advantage. So wanted to thank them for that. Obviously, there's been a lot said about the last game, and so we've moved forward as a team. Our focus now has been Kansas State, and our message to them last night was, when you have big wins or if you have unfortunate losses, you have to get over them really fast and start preparing for the next team. So this game, like what I would expect the others to be on our conference schedule from here on out, will be a challenging game for us, and I would guess would be pretty close game right through the fourth quarter is what we're expecting and what we're preparing for. So we're excited about the next game. Our football team is healthy. I feel like that their attitude and their chemistry is top notch, and expect them to prepare well for the game against Kansas State.
Mike, the yards you guys have gotten out of Jalen in the last 4 games have been pretty impressive. I know part of that's because James was drawing a guy and a half or 2 almost all the time, but what have you seen out of Jalen that's allowed him to have this kind of production in these situations?
Well, he's in the right spot in our schemes. If the other team is going to try to play heavy on James, but he's also a good football player. He has a gym rat mentality, and he plays fearless. He's very competitive, and it wouldn't be we wouldn't be as successful now, or maybe not even remotely close, if he wasn't in our lineup at this time.
Coach, you just got your 100th. Snyder is 2 away from 200. I guess, how does that put things in perspective? What are your immediate thoughts when you hear stats like that?
Well, it makes me think that I'll probably never get 200 because I don't coach as long as Coach Snyder is coaching. But we have a lot of respect for Coach and what they've accomplished at Kansas State.
Mike's got a lot of good things to say about your special teams units across the board. How much of that is Coach Hauser and sort of his attention to detail? I know he was on your staff a while back, coming back and doing what he's doing now.
We've been very fortunate. He's the 3rd graduate assistant that we've hired and put in charge of special teams, and the first 2 are full-time coaches now at this level, and Hauser will be very soon. The game's important to him. He's highly intelligent. He understands. Like most of the young coaches that I refer to on our staff, they're definitely quality enough to coach at this level. They just haven't had an opportunity yet. It's a very difficult business to break into, and Steve will be one of those guys that we see in a few years on TV that's very successful because he's loyal. Loyalty is huge in our profession in all areas. If you're loyal, you can make it, and your product and who we are stays strong. If there's not loyalty, it all falls apart. He's very loyal, and he understands. He's willing to work hard, and he's made a strong commitment to Oklahoma State football.
Not for you, I'm sure, but outside special teams is a little bit of an unsung hero for you guys this year. It seems like across the board you guys have really done a good job there.
Special teams. This will be a real challenge this week. This year in and year out, Kansas State will be one of the top special teams units in the country. And they do a great job with their schemes, and their players understand leverage, they understand coverage, they understand and have multiple reps in their schemes. So hopefully we can keep that going this week. We have been pretty productive in our cover units and in our return game when opportunities were available. We were better than what we have been in the past in our return games.
Mike, I know you've had a lot of freshman backs in the past, and Coach Arroyo is kind of responsible for juggling that group. How close are you paying attention to Justice Hill? Because he is getting a pretty good chunk of carries for a kid that's brand new to this and doing a good job with it. But
We're trying to protect him some. With Chris coming back is helping. We have to watch him as he goes. There's times in the games, he may get banged up a little bit. Part of that is just the natural process of developing into a running back at this level. These guys take a lot of hits, and it's considerably different than what he was accustomed to at this time last year. But we also know that if he's carrying the ball, that we feel like we're a better offense. And in the end, we have to do the very best we can to be as productive as possible and also protect our players and keep them healthy.
Mike, West Virginia was a game for Mason last year that you guys win, but he didn't play great. Said after the game he really was focused on this game. While the defense got a ton of attention for what they did, 26 of 36, 0 interceptions, which after last year I'm sure was probably the most important for him. But what did you like most at, especially after you reviewed it that he did on Saturday?
And I think our defense, was well deserved. I thought they played their best game in their plan, and I think Mason understood our philosophy going into the game. Yurcich did a really nice job with him, and we didn't want him to get out of the box. And I had mentioned after the game that I felt like that a number of teams that play them, and I put us in that category over the last few years, tend to get out of our box and try to reinvent the wheel. And in the end for us, I don't know about the other teams, we end up not being very successful at anything. And I think he understood that, and he was willing to take what the defense was willing to give us. Sometimes we force the ball and try to make everything happen too fast. I made that reference after the game of, in this league, a lot of times it looks like basketball on grass, and the quarterback play instigates that, and they get over aggressive at times, in my opinion. And I thought in this last game he handled himself very well, which gave us the best chance to be successful on offense and productive in the opportunities and times that we had to score.
Talking to Mike a minute ago, he said that you guys are seeing defenses almost go completely against type against you guys. Open middle suddenly is closed down against teams that never do that. How much is that changing game planning and mental processes and things like that as you guys prepare for teams?
It can create some issues. The last few games, maybe even more than that, we're seeing teams go against percentages, and we're getting some looks in the back end that are unaccustomed, in our opinion, to what would be the norm for the teams that we're playing. So we have to make adjustments, and then what it really means to me is you better be good at your base. You have to make adjustments during the game. And as I said, West Virginia made an adjustment at halftime and gave us some issues first couple series in the third quarter, and then we had to adjust again a little bit, but we were still able to do that. Our ability to run the ball a little more effective this year has given us other options, when last year it was just protect and keep chunking it down the field, and which I've never been comfortable with.
Have you had teams before that defenses have done this a lot, that you've seen sort of a steady diet of teams going against maybe what you've seen them do on film all year or even historically?
We saw a little bit of that with Justin Blackman, but we had so many other players on that team that were potential NFL players, and so we didn't see as much. And then, of course, we saw quite a bit of that with Dez Bryant when he was here.
So it's a product of James, you think, mostly?
I think so. At the end of the year, you could probably ask those guys and they would tell you, but I'm guessing that they watched the video of the games early in the year when he catches so many deep balls, and he is accountable for so many points, and then they watch the tape and they say, we don't want that to happen. What are our options? And that's how we end up where we are now.
How is James handling the increased attention from defenses?
He's okay. James is very unselfish, and he works hard every day, and he realizes what's happening. And he knows the importance of Mason distributing the ball, whether it's the backs or the other receivers, into where we think the weakness is of the defense. He never says a word. He does a great job in handling that situation.
With all that said, in the last 4 games, you guys probably run more than 300 plays, and you only have 1 turnover since the Baylor game. What do you attribute that to?
I think part of it's Mason understanding the schemes, and as I mentioned earlier with Jenny's question, that he's been willing to take what the defense has given us and not trying to get too eager and take something that's not there. And then obviously the running backs have to hold on the ball. Skill guys have to hold on the ball in space. Makes a big difference.
Different scheme. Tom Hayes may not be getting the same amount of attention that a Tony Gibson is as the coordinator at West Virginia, but K-State is a kind of a tough nut to crack defensively, aren't they?
He's getting a lot of attention from me. I've been watching him all year, and nobody's scoring on him. And they got in a little bit of a shootout for a Coach Snyder team with Texas Tech, just based on the way the game. But it wasn't a real shootout, but for them it was. But if you just look at their games, the second half of Stanford, and then through the I think it was Florida Atlantic game, and West Virginia, I don't think West Virginia scored at halftime. Oklahoma handled them okay at times, but they handled Iowa State. Texas, if you look at the numbers, they're just not giving up a lot of points. And because they're more of a base defense that would be very traditional, they don't get as much of the attention as what maybe Tony's getting with the 3-3 stack. But they've been very successful in the world they live in, and they don't step out of that box very often.
On the other side of things, Coach Spencer was talking about how K-State's defense may be ranked really low, yet last game they had, 9 possessions and scored 31 points. How underestimated is their offense?
In this game, you're not going to have as many possessions on either side, just based on the number of times that they snap the ball with 2 seconds or less is 4 times the number that most teams in this league will be in that time with the 25-second or 40-second clock. And so it's a little bit of a different game. And for us, we don't change who we are. We go play our game, and we want to be sound in all 3 phases. But the numbers are different just based on the total number of snaps that Kansas State has and the teams that play Kansas State get during that game.
Mike, after the game, Ramone said he kind of felt like he was in high school in that interception return, playing quarterback, calling out his blocks. Was wondering, after over all these years, how many of those guys have you had, former quarterbacks, that you've turned into defensive backs?
We've had a number of them. It'd be hard for me to pinpoint now since you hit me with that question, but Justin Gilbert. I'll think of some of the other ones, but in most cases, a high school quarterback, whether he's a running quarterback or a traditional quarterback, is going to be one of the smarter players on the team and one of the most athletic players on the team that the coaches trust. And so we've always had a lot of respect during the recruiting process for young men that are playing that position in their high school, at their high school, for those reasons. And Ramone is starting to kind of grow into being a good college player now. He's I said this about 6 weeks ago. For some reason, he's got a knack of being in the right place at the right time. And that's a good thing. Sean Lewis had that. We've had some guys that were always in the right place at the right time. And he is very athletic. And he handled that situation the right way. He didn't start lateral, and we had discussed that after the last game. And I was wondering if our coaching had actually would take place, because we had that discussion. That doesn't always mean they're going to buy in, and so he really did a nice job. But I go back to our guys blocked well, stay off the back, and no illegal or unsportsmanlike away from the ball. That makes as much of a difference as anything.
With Ramone, it seems like it's always an extreme. He's making an incredible play and being in the right spot, or he's getting beat over the top. With him, is your blood pressure kind of high watching him because he's always making some sort of plays?
He needs to develop into being a smarter football player in game situations, and it's not a secret. And he's highly intelligent, and he gets caught up in the moment at times, and I think he's learning to play through that. It's taken him a little bit longer than others, but people, go after him. There's not any big scouting report news. They put the tape on and watch. So he understands that. We've had discussions with him about that, and he realizes that that's kind of the final piece for him. Is he's in a place he can make plays. His coverages are good most of the time, but he has to understand the situation and be a smarter football player based on the circumstances that he's in.
You tune in any real talk with Ramone? You see that little video series?
I have not, but my boys follow him and they kind of update me. So, but I have not. When we started this, they ran it by me, and I thought it would be a good way for the fans to relate with our players. And obviously Ramone was the first out of the gate because that's perfect for his personality, and I think it's a good product for people to get to know our players.
You've been that way since day one, always joking, talkative, clever sort of guy?
Yeah, Ramone has a long history with how he got to this point in his childhood and a lot of different things, and I think that brought out a lot in him. But there are some people that we cross during our lifetime that very seldom ever have a bad day, and he's one of those guys.
Regarding the defense, can you talk about how you guys have, I think it said, only given up 30 points in the fourth quarter all season? Just what's been the key to that for you?
I think that the rotation and the depth that we have has helped us up to this point. I had mentioned that in preseason that this was the first time that we felt like we could play two defensive lines since I've been the head coach here. That's been our goal from day one. It's just taken us a long time to accomplish it. It goes back to the switch we made 4 years ago in scholarship numbers, allotting more on the defensive side to try to get to this point. And my personal opinion is because of that, they're fresh, and the other guys are worn down somewhat, and active defensive linemen make a big difference late in the game.
With that in mind, Mike, Vincent Taylor, the year he's having, I know we saw him with a lateral, he's been involved in some flashy plays, but just how good a season is he having?
He's been really effective for us. He's been very good on the run. His pass rush ability has improved considerably in the last five to six games, and his awareness of where the quarterback is, and then when he gets a step or two away, he's had that burst to where he could get his hands on him and strip the ball away. And one thing in evaluating defensive linemen from high school, and then also scouting college linemen when we're playing them, and some players have a natural ability to get to the quarterback when they're within an arm's length or so, and some guys, they don't ever get to him. And he's one of those guys that when he gets fairly close, he's got a knack for being able to grab a hold of something and get the quarterback and get him down.
I think Joe Bob mentioned this to me before the season about Vincent, that last year he made a lot of plays just based on athleticism. Showed him a lot of that tape in the offseason and said, okay, now, if you work within the scheme, is what we're seeing now, I mean, he's obviously still as athletic, but is this a product of harnessing that athleticism into the system?
And he made a number of plays last year based on them concerned so much about Emmanuel. And so we felt like he was a good player, but because he wasn't the center of attention, we weren't sure. But Joe Bob has worked with him fundamentally, and he has improved in that area.
Is he benefiting too by just the talent and depth around him? And you mentioned that defensive line. I have to think there's probably not anybody getting a whole lot of single. I mean, no one-on-ones hardly at all, right?
You're right. We're when some of the guys come in that don't have as much experience as Mote and Vince and those guys, you're getting a little of that. But for the most part, we're not getting much. and he's benefiting from the reps that the number of plays that he's getting on the sideline while the other guys are playing. They gas back up and get hydrated, and it makes a big difference late in the game.
Coach, do you have a most memorable Halloween costume?
You know, it's interesting. I've never been, as an adult, I've never been a big Halloween party guy because it's during the season. But when I was a kid, you know, one of those things that happen to you when you're a kid, you just never forget. One year, I think I was like a 9 or 8, I was going to be a mummy. And my mom was wrapping me up, and we couldn't get it to stay on. And so all of a sudden, she just took the scissors and started cutting all my clothes up. And so for a second there, I was a little bit scared. And then I realized that she turned me into a hobo and sent me out the door. And I've always remembered that, so I'm kind of going with that one as my all-time favorite.
Coach Spencer said his all-time favorite costume was a mummy too, or a hobo too, rather. He said.
Well, see, I didn't know that, but ours was not originally going to be a hobo, but I think that was the only option, and it was getting close to dark, and so I never haven't forgotten that.
Good?
All right, thanks.